This illustration deals with equipment that is connected to the supply side of the service disconnect again. Notice that this is item number 11 to NEC 230.82 A and B. Purpose of change: a new subdivision was provided and has been added to recognize the use of a meter-mounted transfer switches, which are currently available and are being installed to facilitate optional standby systems. That's Article, 702, typically in dwelling units. The National Electrical Code must recognize the use of these switches and build additional requirements necessary to ensure safe installation and use. Listed meter-mounted transfer switches are readily available. It is imperative that these switches be listed to meet the same product standard as other types of transfer switches. Now, kind of reviewing this, let's look at the very top of this unit, transfer switch, and notice transfer switch is rated 1,000 volts or less. So 230.82, item number 11 is applicable. Now, looking at the next requirement that we look at, it's a listed transfer switch and not service equipment. So this means you wouldn't have to have these clearances above it that is listed in 110.26, but you would need the clearances in front of it, and according to 110.26, A1, A2, and A3, that sends you to the table 110.26 A1. Now, notice meter-mounted and marked meters, 230.82 11A. Now, dropping down, the short circuit current equal to or greater than the available short circuit current, 230.82, item 11, 110.9, and 110.10 or other sections to review to determine this available short circuit current. It has to be calculated, remember, by 110.24 at the service. Now, notice one other thing in this short circuit current equal to or greater than. Now, what the problem was here, in the old days, the city in some places and counties and states, they would require you that if you had 10,000 amps of short circuit current, that's just an example, hitting this, that you would hit it with no more than 80%. And that kind of gave a cushion that we wouldn't blow circuit breakers and terminals, apart and cause damage. But with the equipment that they manufacture today, that's not necessary. So they wanted to change this and say equal to or greater than. So that means if you had 10 KA coming in, you could have 10A equipment. Or if you had 22 KA coming in, you could have 22A equipment, but you would have to be capable of interrupting the amount of short circuit current coming in. So that was a very important change in the 2017 edition of the NEC. Now, I would kind of like to just throw in this little reminder that for optional standby systems in the note, you see Article 702. And remember, if you look at 702.2, it lists the types of loads that can be connected to an optional standby system. It also allows the user of the optional standby system to calculate the loads that they want to supply, or they can supply all the loads. But what the optional standby system gives you, that it can be brought on manually, it could be brought on automatically, but what I'm trying to point out, there's a choice there. So, but when you get into 701, legally required standby, you get into Article 700, emergency, you don't have that option. So kind of keep that in mind, that you look at 700.2, 701.2, and 702.2 for the loads that would classify a generator either emergency, legally required, or it would be optional standby. But you would go to those loads to determine what kind of or what type of generator you have to classify this. See. So an emergency generator, 700.2, if you can get some of them egress loads off, emergency type loads off of there, and make it a legally required, there's a big advantage there to have 702, because you can bring 702 on in a later margin, like 60 cycles maybe. If you had a emergency generator, you bring it on in 10 cycles. The generator has to be able to bring on the emergency loads and so forth. So review that very carefully. And so the bottom line here is that this equipment is connected to the supply side of the service disconnecting means in accordance with 230.8211 A and B. So review those very carefully.